Okay, welcome everyone to Math 219. I'm Clark Bray. If you're enrolled in one of my sections, I look forward to working with you in this course. This video is a preliminary discussion about the course. As you can see up here, we're going to talk about the organization of the course. And I'm also going to spend some time talking about advice for how to do well in the course. So here we go. Let's dive right in. If you're thinking about a math major, possibly, maybe. You don't have to, of course, obviously. But if you are thinking about a math major, I think it'd be a good idea to come talk to me. It'd be a quick conversation, just a quick check-in to make sure that you're doing the right things and you've talked to the right people, etc. Anyway, for those to whom this is relevant, come talk to me. Okay, great. Okay, so if you are watching this video, you've probably already gotten an email from me that has this link in the email, but I'm going to leave it here in this outline anyway, just in case. So this is the class website. This is where all the information about my sections of Math 219 will be found. And we're going to talk through some of the highlights of that site in a few minutes. Well, over the next half hour, however long this takes. Notice there's also going to be there a link to the shared course website. The course website applies to all sections of Math 219 this semester. Okay, so some matters are course matters and apply to all sections, and some are entirely, at my discretion as instructor and apply only to my sections. Okay. All right. So you do have to make sure to read through all of both of these websites and click around on the links. You don't have to read every single thing at every single link, but it'd be a good idea to familiarize yourself and make sure you know where to find what information. Okay. So let's hit some specifics. We'll try. I'm going to somewhat go in the order that the ideas occur to me on the website, but to some extent, I'll try to go in this order. We'll see what happens. Here it is. This is our class website, and maybe I'll go ahead and make this a little bit larger. Maybe not that large. Here we go. Okay, so so you see right up here at the top, course website. This is where there's a bunch of course information, and maybe we should go through this first. You'll notice I have all the instructors listed here and contact information. My website is linked here. I don't yet have the contact information for the others. We'll get that soon. It doesn't really apply to y'all though, so nothing to worry about. Okay, the content syllabus. Let's click on this real quick. This is a page that lists a lot of useful information, exactly which sections of the book we're going to be covering, with titles of the sections, exactly which exercises from those sections of the book are going to be assigned for the homework. We'll get into those details in a couple of minutes. And then two more columns. This column that says included material. This is stuff that's not in the book, but that is still part of the course. The books are never a perfect representation of exactly what instructors want to include, and there are some topics that we want to include that are not in our book. So, for example, when we get to talking about divergence and curl in section 3.4, how to do that in polar and spherical coordinates. The book doesn't really talk about it, and we think that's something that's important. Okay. All right. So it is fair game on the exams. It is part of the course, just not in the book. And then there's the sort of the flip side, excluded material, stuff that is in the book, but that is not part of the course. So, for example, the book gives a very nice discussion of how to prove certain facts about cross products. And that's good stuff, but it's not really what this course is about. It goes sort of too much into proof and rigor and stuff that isn't just really what we're primarily interested in. So everything that's in this column even though it's in the book, you are excused. You're not responsible for that material. You still might want to read it if you're curious or if you just want to get a deeper dive into some of those ideas. You just don't have to. Okay. All right. Now, do make sure to read all of this text up here. There are important discussions of, in some sense, what all this stuff means up here, and then what we expect you to know coming into the course, the prerequisite material. So it's in particular, it's everything in the prerequisite trail of the course. So for this course, the prerequisite is linear algebra. The documented prerequisite is linear algebra, but linear algebra has as its prerequisite single variable calculus, which has as its prerequisites, trigonometry, high school algebra, etc. So anyway, this just documents that and notes some specific topics that are particularly important. Not that the others aren't important, but it's particularly important to make sure that you're proficient with these topics listed here. Okay. Alrighty. Let's see, course grades. Let's talk about this a little bit. Roughly speaking, there's going to be various graded items, each of which will get a grade on the 4-point scale. So, 4-point scale, y'all are probably somewhat familiar with this. 4.0 is an A, 3.0 is a B, etc. 3.7 is an A minus, stuff like that, right? You will get, on that scale, you will get a grade on all graded items, and then your grade for the course will be determined by your weighted average of all those graded items. The weights being listed here. So now the instructors reserve the right to decide how to split up that 60% on their midterms. Different instructors will make different choices. It's up to them. But for everyone in the course, the final exam will be 30%. And again, the different instructors will make different choices about how to use this 10%. And we'll talk about how I'm going to do that when we get to the appropriate page. So pretty simple. Now, when you take that weighted average, you're going to get a number that won't be exactly, one of the standard values, 4.0, 3.7, etc. So we're going to use this collection of bins to translate from weighted average to course grade. So, for example, if you end up with a 3.86, notice 3.86 falls into this bin. And correspondingly, then, that would give you an A in the course. If you end up with a 3.72, that would fall into this bin. That gets you an A minus in the course, etc. Okay. All right. And then a few other discussions down here. You should make a point of reading all of this stuff. We don't have time, of course, to go through all this stuff. But if you're thinking about possibly taking the course on the SU basis, you want to definitely make sure to read this, some important points there, and then some other notes about course grades. Make sure to read all this stuff. Okay. All righty. Let's see here. General policies. Again, y'all can read all of this. Do make sure to do so. It is a lot of stuff, and there's just a lot to say. A lot of topics on which we have policies. So again, make sure to read all of this stuff. You are responsible for knowing all of this, all these policies. Let's see here. Course materials. So there's a few documents that we have here that'll come up at different points in the course. And I'll draw your attention to this one called Math 219 AHP. You click on that and up comes a document, which it basically is a bunch of additional homework problems. And these are questions that we've written over the years to fill in gaps, what we perceive as gaps in the problems that are available in the textbook. So those will be assigned as well. In fact, you can see them on the content syllabus Here we go. Here is an AHP right there. And so AHP 1, 2, 3, 4, that's in reference to the exercises you'll find on that document. Okay, let's see here. Grade scope, y'all are probably already familiar with. This early announcements page is currently empty because as of this recording, I have not yet sent any course announcements. When I do, I will put them below this horizontal line on this page. That is, I will do so for the first, a couple of weeks or so of the course. And once the class rosters are settled, then I'll be able to have complete confidence that no one will be adding the course after I send such emails, and there won't be any need. So this is just to document early announcements for those who will be joining the course late. Okay. All righty. Okay, let's see. Let me go back to the outline here to make sure I haven't forgotten some things. I probably have. Let's see. We talked about the content. So, let me talk about my reordering of the content syllabus. So, we will go back to my class website, and you'll see right here Bray's reordering. So, at a quick glance, this would appear to be the same content syllabus, and it's very, very similar. It has it has literally exactly all of the same information. The only difference is I have the book sections put in the order that I will be covering them. So, for example, you'll notice here, 3.1, sitting right in the middle of chapter 2 for some reason. And the reason for this is that I like to use the ideas in that section in my presentation of the chain rule. I think it gives an easier way to present and think about the chain rule. So I shuffle the topic just a little bit, and the idea is that y'all, being as you are enrolled in my sections, y'all can look at this copy of the content syllabus. Everything is in the order that I'll be covering them. You'll notice also chapter 4 pushed to the end of the course. We'll talk about that, why I do that later on. And if you rely on this copy of the content syllabus, everything will go in course order. Okay, let's see, what else do we have here? Class schedule. Yeah, that'd be a good thing to talk about. Okay, class schedule. Let's see here. We'll go back here, and you see very, very near the top, class schedule right here. So this is a documentation of everything that's going to happen in terms of dates. So a bunch of discussion about how things are organized up here. Do make sure to read all of that. Loosely speaking, though, what you'll notice is that for any given date, I have a corresponding target representing what page in my lecture notes I'm hoping to be able to get to by that date. But I may or may not hit my targets. And honestly, I'm usually a little bit behind. We'll always catch up at the end. In fact, I deliberately front load my schedule to keep a fire lit under myself because it's so hard to go as fast as we need to be able to go to finish all the material of the course, and this helps to keep me on schedule. So I front load the schedule, and then I also have some buffer stuff at the end, some material that's supplemental and optional, and don't really have to do it, and I can when in need I can skip a couple of things that were kind of optional in the first place. Okay. Anyway, what we actually do on a given day, I will document in these columns. And then furthermore, what sections of the book, as noted on the content syllabus, that we finish on a given day and are therefore assigned as part of the homework assignment will go for any given day. They'll be documented, and again, in the corresponding cell right there. Okay, so in particular, then you'll notice that, and of course they're not done yet, they're still TBD, to be determined. But homework 1, once we have these entries in the spreadsheet filled out, saying exactly which sections we finished on exactly these dates, right, from from the first class meeting through the Wednesday of the following week. Those questions, those exercises on the content syllabus for those sections will make up homework assignment number 1, and here's the due date. So I hope that's a pretty straight read. I think it makes sense. Do be sure to notice that the lines here distinguishing, for example, homework 1 from homework 2, right? That line does not correspond to the week lines over here, right? The end of a week is not the same as the end of a homework assignment, and they're a little bit staggered for different reasons. For this first week and for most of the following weeks, I have a given homework assignment end on a Wednesday. And the idea then is that'll give you 2 days during the week, namely Thursday and Friday, part of Wednesday also, to seek help, to come to my office hours, to go to the help room or what have you, and get help with exercises that you've tried but maybe had trouble with. And to get that feedback, get the help, and then you can once you have that help, then you can finish the assignment. Notice as well, for this assignment and for most assignments, it's due on Sunday. And the idea there is that while I think it would be reasonable for me to have them due on Friday, giving you until Sunday just allows you to make positive use of the weekend, and why not? Why wouldn't we do that? This was a change of a few semesters back, based on a student request. Okay. Notice for all of the due dates, the homeworks are due at 11 p.m. Eastern Time, 11 p.m. Durham time. So the homework due dates for every one of these homework due dates, the time is 11 p.m. Okay, and you'll be submitting on GradeScope. Let's see here, noted there. And again, presumably y'all are familiar with GradeScope, and there's a link back on the website. Okay. Let's see. While we're here, I will note that I have some comments, reminders, this sort of thing, over here in purple. I like to color code things to help things distinguish and stand out on the page. And for many class meetings, so for example here on Friday, January 23rd, you'll notice that I have a comment for that date saying there's an exam in just 2 weeks. And, some comments about, hey, you should be getting ready for that exam already. And sure enough, notice there is an exam there 2 weeks later. So please do make a point of keeping your eye on these comments. There's good advice in there, and it's efficient to just have it, already there on the schedule, and y'all can, you can even read ahead a little bit, and that'll help you to anticipate and do better time management, etc. Okay. Let's see here. Okay, so I think that, okay, and then just for fun, by the way, before classes get started, before the lectures get started, I like to play music when the classroom electronic system permits. Most of the classrooms have speakers, and why not? So I have some, a lot of my musical preferences and tastes, etc. I have little playlists for, and who knows? I hope I might even possibly open someone's mind about some music that maybe you weren't previously familiar with or didn't previously appreciate. So anyway, that's just for fun. You don't have to pay attention to this if you don't want to. But I figure on a given day, if you come to class and on a particular date and you really love the music, then I'd like y'all to have a convenient reference for where you can find it, and, then you can do your own sort of clicking around and exploring on your own. Okay. Alrighty, let's see here. Back to my organization. Yeah, let's talk about class grades. Now, we already talked about a lot of this. We're going to use the 4-point scale and weighted averages. Every individual exam is curved individually, and then I will point out, and I'm going to say more details about those. But homework also counts. Attendance also counts. Those graded items are on a fixed curve, and those details not that interesting. Y'all can read those. But let's go to the class web page again and go to class grades. Now, this is not to be confused with the course grades web page. The one that we've already looked at has policies that apply to all sections of the course. This page here applies only to my sections of the course. And you'll see, here's where I've indicated how I break down that 60% that I'm allocated for midterm exam weights. So I'm going to give 3 midterm exams, and they're worth 20% each. Nice and simple. Okay. All right. You will notice also how I break down my sort of optional 10%, instructor discretion 10%. So I'm going to have 7% weight applied to the homework and 3% weight applied to the attendance. Okay. All right. And then some further discussions down here. Do make sure to read these details. Let's see here. So there's some discussion about homework assignments and how they're graded and how I will compute your homework average, et cetera, et cetera. Do notice that I dropped the lowest score. That's a nice little perk. Gives you a little bit of flexibility in some sense. But do notice that this is not like the high school grading system. Right? So, I interpolate linearly between 100% and 65%. 100% gives you an A. 65% gives, this is 0. That's an F. But it's not like the high school grading system in between there. And in particular, notice 82.5. That's exactly halfway in between what would give you a 4.0 versus what would give you a 0.0. And so therefore, 82.5 is a 2.0. Whereas I think a lot of high schools probably would have called that like a B- or something. And so anyway, the high school system is just not relevant here. So be advised, right? It's a linear interpolation between those two reference points. Again, just be advised. Okay, a bunch of discussions about attendance, and there's a whole thing for that, and we'll talk about that later. And again, we won't start with attendance checks immediately. We'll wait until the course roster settles down. That'll be, probably the second week of classes, something like that. But what I want to point out is how even though it's only 3% of your grade. Let's see here. Yeah, 3% of your course grade. It doesn't sound like much, but it can make a really big difference. So there's a bunch of discussions in here and a numerical example and a couple of different ways of thinking about things. And, every class meeting actually counts a little bit, a non-trivial amount, and can make a difference in your course grade. So be sure to read all this. Be sure to think it through and make sure you understand all of the repercussions of class attendance. Okay. All right. Let's see. One thing I should also mention, we talked about, let's see, where did I do it? That's right. Exam scores will all have a curve. Every midterm exam will have a curve. I'll be setting the curve for our class. And they're posted in the exam curves section of this class website. So let's take a look at that. Again, here on the class website, which, by the way, I've made the class website so that it scales very nicely so you can view it on your phone. It's very low tech. It's a very 1997 style web page. But that, conveniently, it does make it really easy to view on your phone. So anyway. So you come down here and there is a page called Exam Curves. And this will get filled out at the appropriate time. I have not yet even written exam 1, so I don't know what the curve will be. And I like to see the grades on the exam, the scores on the exam before I set the curve, because it helps me to get a sense of what was actually difficult on the exam, to see how students did on different kinds of questions. And with all of that information, I'll set the curve. And those numbers will appear here. And for example, for exam 1 in this column, And if you get an 83 on the first exam, then this, whatever ends up being here, will tell you your grade on the 4-point scale that corresponds to that 83. Okay. All right. And let's see here. Where are we in the... Okay, so we've done content, syllabus, class schedule, class grades. Let's talk about the YouTube recordings. So for the past 10 years or more, since long before COVID, I've been recording all of my class lectures. I think this is a fabulous learning tool. I wished when I was an undergrad that I had video recordings of all of my class meetings. It would have been very helpful to me. Anyway, I want you all to have that advantage. So let's see. We'll click over to there from the class website. Down here near the bottom, YouTube recordings. And notice in particular it says see playlists. So I have my each semester course offerings broken down into individual playlists. So you just go to the corresponding playlist. Okay, so let's do that. And let's see here. It's going to, it starts that little introductory recording. Anyway, can't make that stop. So I'm going to, as advised, I'm going to go and click on playlists right here. And I don't yet have a playlist for this semester because I don't have any videos yet. As I'm recording this will be the first one. So soon after I finish this recording, it will be the first video on a playlist for this semester. But since, we're not there yet, I'll just click on last semester's 25 fall view full playlist. And you will eventually find, again, here's the organizational recording that I made last semester. So the one I'm recording currently will be right here. And then every recording I make for the rest of the semester in every one of my sections, they will all be right here. So I hope you will find this to be a useful resource. If you are in class and I say something you have trouble understanding, no problem. No problem. All you do is make a note. And let's see, let me pull up a copy of my lecture notes. Here's a copy of my lecture notes. And let's see here. Let's see if I can do this. Right, here we go. So, for example, let's suppose I'm talking about an example like this, and maybe you have a little bit of trouble figuring out where I got this from. Right? And so you're not sure where that came from. And maybe I already talked about it, and I've already moved on to some other things, something like that. All you have to do is make a note of what time it says in the bottom right-hand corner here. And you see it says 2:59. So you can just write down 2:59 right there on your copy of these lecture notes. And I'm going to provide these lecture notes for all students. And you just annotate here and write the time, and then at some later time, you can go to the YouTube channel, click on the video, and go to whatever point in the video gets you to that time, and listen to it again. And the explanation that I already gave in class, you don't need to necessarily stop the class to ask a question, for me to repeat something I already said. You can just write down that time, and then at a later time at your convenience, just listen to the explanation again and get what you need. So I think that's a really, really helpful idea. And by the way, you don't have to use the recordings just for this one very limited purpose. You can also maybe re-listen to the entire example if you had trouble with the example overall. Or you might conceivably want to re-listen to an entire section of the lecture, or possibly even the entire lecture, whatever works best for you. But the point is you have all of these options available. Okay. All right. Okay. So again, I hope you'll make heavy use of these recordings. I know I would have. Every math class that I attended, there was always something about it that I was having a little trouble with, maybe trying to figure out what he meant when he said such and such, and I just didn't quite have time to process it at the time. So rather than miss the rest of the lecture as you're trying to figure out some little detail, just make a note and then pay attention to the rest of the lecture, right? And then go back and fill in the blank on what you missed at a later time using the recording. Okay. All right. So the attendance quizzes. Let's talk about this a little bit. We're not going to start them immediately. Again, I'm going to wait till the roster settles down. It's just a way of checking attendance, roughly speaking. In fact, here I'll go to the website to point out. Let's see. It's under classroom rules. So attendance is done by quizzes. That'll be on our course, our class Canvas site, and you'll just go into Canvas when you come to class. There will be a quiz for that date. That quiz will have one question. The one question will be, what's the number that I wrote on the chalkboard? You, being as you are in class, will then see the number and enter that as your answer. You'll hit submit. You will then go and confirm that your score has been recorded correctly, and you're checked in and you've got credit for attendance. There's nothing to it. Very easy to do. I will point out that this is probably most easily done with the Canvas app on your phone. Y'all probably already have the Canvas app on your phone. If not, you can do it with a laptop on and use the Canvas website. Whatever suits you, totally fine. Okay. As this process gets going, and we're not there yet, this will be in the second or third week, something like that, I will put up a practice quiz that will have no bearing at all on course grades. The practice quiz is just so that you can experiment around and get comfortable with this process. Right? So you can make sure that you have the, muscle memory, you know how to do everything, and make sure you know the ins and outs and the whoopsies. And, what if I enter the number incorrectly and I have to take the quiz again? And how does that look on your phone? And where do I tap? Stuff like that. So you can play around with the free practice quiz, once I get that set up. And I'll give y'all, some time in advance, from the time that I'll email you all these details, again, second or third week, to the time that we will actually begin the quizzes. You'll have time to play around with this stuff. Okay, so now I have to mention, obviously it is physically possible to text someone else the attendance code, the number, the 5-digit number, and they can take the quiz remotely, and this is a way of bypassing the intent of the attendance quiz. This is what I'm going to call obviously cheating, and it is shockingly easy to catch. So I want to make sure everyone understands this. It is super easy to catch students that do this. And exactly how that works is discussed down here, what I call paper attendance checks. And basically the big idea is, and I have to do this just so that the attendance quizzes will be secure and legitimate. Every so often, no announcement, I will, after the quiz has disappeared, let's see, I should go up. Notice here the quizzes will disappear after 2 minutes. That is 2 minutes after the start of the class meeting. So if you get there early, you're all good. You can take the quiz as soon as you get there. If you arrive on time, you will have 2 minutes to do the attendance quiz. If you arrive late, side note, being on time is a requirement of the course. If you arrive late, then however late you are detracts from your time being able to submit the attendance quiz. And being late is not an excuse. So anyway, notice it says right here, you must be on time. So anyway, the point is the quiz will disappear 2 minutes after the class starting time, and at that point, all I am going to do, again without announcement, is I will distribute to those physically present a little paper form in which you write your name and student ID number, and then I collect the forms. And so someone who's not there can't do that, and then I know who cheated. Okay, so notice how easy that is to do. It's very easy to do. And so I feel it necessary to point this out. I don't want anyone to make the tremendous mistake this semester of thinking that they can get lucky or get away with it. This doesn't make any sense. The risk-reward ratio is through the roof. It really doesn't make any sense. The amount of points, that you will get by cheating on the attendance quiz is very small compared to the risk, which is if you commit an act of premeditated cheating. The student conduct office they do not have a sense of humor about this. Suspension is on the table. I mean, and I don't have any say in what penalties they impose, but they're very, very unsympathetic to that sort of thing. So please make good decisions. I know that I'm only talking to a very small fraction of the class here, and I apologize for having to bring up such an ugly business. But anyway, notice how emphatically I've got this discussed here, and do make sure to read everything. I really, really am not. I hope that this just doesn't come up. Wouldn't that be lovely if this just doesn't come up? But it's really not in any sense a reasonable, rational decision to cheat on these. Okay, all right, enough of that. Let's see. I am going to say a couple of things. Again, students are expected to be on time. It creates a lot of distractions when students come in late. The lecture has begun, and it's a distraction for everybody in the class, and there's really no reason for it. Time management is a very, very critical skill in modern society. Certainly being a college student at a place like Duke, is very, very important to have good time management and, do what you have to do. I myself am, space cadet, scatterbrain, pick your favorite. I am not a naturally, organized kind of a person. And so I have to impose on myself these organizational systems. I have a calendar, and I use my reminders app. I rely on my reminders app and alarms and things like this to keep me going, to keep me on schedule, and as a result, everything works fine for me. So anyway, do what you got to do, but make sure you can be on time. Again, be aware of problems that result if you're not on time. And, this is, something that I have to, rarely, but sometimes I have to, bring up with students. Here's a related note, and that is, talking in class. And by the way, I love talking to students. Lots of fun, right? So I'm all for it. And I want, time before class to be chatty and chummy and fun, and we'll be listening to music, etc. That's all great. That said, when the lecture begins, I do need to keep the focus entirely on the lecture. We get very, very limited contact time for the lectures, and we have so much material we have to cover. It's extremely important that we are maximum efficient with that lecture time. And once the lecture is begun, talking is it's a distraction, and I have to confess, part of this is me. I don't know exactly why it is, but just an aspect of my personality or something. But when there's background talking, and I do have pretty good ears, I'm sorry about that, but it's very difficult for me to maintain my train of thought. I have a strong compulsion to stop and therefore not interrupt the people whose voices I'm hearing. And obviously I have to resist this compulsion because I'm the one giving the lecture and I have to keep going, but it's very hard, and expending that mental effort is just a distraction that makes the lecture not go as well. And this is a very significant effect, and we can't have that. I have to be able to focus on the lecture, and I have to, everyone else in the class is there to get a good lecture on the material, and we have to do what we have to do to make that work out. So again, please be sensitive to my the way that I'm put together on this, and I appreciate your cooperation. Thank you very much in advance for cooperating with me on that. Okay, all right. A few other things y'all can read. Make sure to read all this stuff, but I think that's important. Okay, all right. So now some really big ideas. Let's talk about the learning goals for the course. And obviously, this is a course on multivariable calculus, and we want you to learn multivariable calculus. But what specifically? And what I think is super important, a lot of students come from a previous background that doesn't emphasize this distinction. We are interested in ideas and reasoning. A lot of students mistakenly think that if they get the right answer, that that's all that matters, and nothing else, whatever. I mean, things you wrote down previous to that were just kind of, so you don't have to do the problem in your head. That's kind of just an assistance to the student. That is absolutely not true. The answer at the bottom of the page is not what we're interested in, more than marginally. And likewise, if you're deriving some equation, knowing what the concluding result is not what this course is about. It's about the reasoning that gets you to that. And, again, it's somewhat about knowing what the formulas are, but more so about understanding why the formulas and what is the reasoning behind why the formulas are true. Okay, so this is a tremendously important point. This is fundamental to the course. This is different from, again, most, for example, high school math courses aren't really oriented this way. So heads up, be aware. Now, you're going to notice unavoidably, it'd be impossible not to notice that that's how my lectures are going to go. My lectures are going to be about ideas and reasoning. In fact, that's most of what my lectures will be, right? I'm not going to spend class time with, flashcards making sure that you've memorized formulas. This is not a good use of class time. Class time is going to be about understanding ideas and understanding related mathematical reasoning. Okay. And then likewise on the exams, right? On the exams, the questions are going to require that you do some significant mathematical reasoning, problem solving, for example. The occasional, I don't want to say proof, but the occasional show that kind of a question. And then questions that make use of the fundamental mathematical ideas that we will have discussed, and how to do, can you use creative thinking with those ideas and that sort of thing. That's going to be a large part of what the exams are going to be on. And then furthermore, the way grading will work is mostly about, again, these things. So this is really what the course is, and it's important to recognize that, and then to adapt how you approach the course accordingly. So when you're learning the material, studying, listening in class even, but studying after class, talking with other students, etc., you'll want to focus on the ideas and the reasoning. Now, yes, you also have to know some formulas, and you also have to know certain words and what they mean. And there will be, excuse me, there will be, various algorithms that you'll need to be able to, be proficient with executing, and rehearsing that is, of course, yeah, there's going to be a little bit of that as well. But try to focus, I'll say this, what I think is the most under-focused part of the course in terms of, how much students focus on it compared to how much they should be focusing on it. Ideas and reasoning. Okay. All right. So likewise, when you're working on the homeworks, right? And likewise, when you, show your work on exams, this is what we're going to be interested in is, are you communicating unambiguously, clearly, that you understand the ideas and that you are proficient with the related mathematical reasoning. Okay. All right. So again, heads up, right? Make sure that you're clear about this. Make sure that you approach the course accordingly. And I want to emphasize, I'm well aware that this, might not be a familiar idea to everyone, and not everyone might, perhaps, be fully clear on what I'm talking about here. And if that's the case, come talk to me. I'll be very, very happy. No problem. Very happy to discuss with any students that maybe want some clarification on what do I mean by this, and maybe bounce some ideas around. And I just want to make sure that everybody gets a clear understanding. I'm very happy to discuss any of this with any students, pretty much whenever, subject to my availability, but we'll find a time. But make a point, please, of coming to talk to me about this if you're not clear on what all this means. Okay. Next big idea, really the last big idea, I guess I'll do it like this, is how I've got this course designed to maximize student learning. Roughly speaking, this point here, there is just not enough time for all of us to learn all of the material during class time. There's just not enough time. And frankly, it's not even close. There is way more material than we can actually learn during the very limited class meeting time that we get. So how do we adapt to that? So the big idea for me then is, rather than trying to maximize how much you learn each 50-minute class meeting, I want to maximize how much opportunity I give you to learn that material, both during the class meetings and also outside of the class meetings. So as I'm lecturing, I'm thinking to some extent about, what are y'all ready to digest immediately? But I'm also thinking, what will you be ready to digest when you listen to the recording again, sometime later, after, maybe doing some homework exercises, maybe, doing some self-study, whatever. And then you say, okay, I think I'm going to listen to part of this again. I'm going to be doing my live class lectures again, somewhat aimed at, for you to hear later. So, consequence of this is not expected that you will understand every single thing during class. Right? So, something to keep in mind. And, don't feel bad if, in the middle of the class, if you're, finding that you're not understanding, everything. Again, just make notes, right? Document on the lecture notes, document, where you have a problem, document the time so you can watch that part of the recording later and you can come back to it. And, after multiple coats, right? I like to think of learning as kind of like, painting. You don't, I don't know how much experience you might have with painting, but if you're going to paint a wall, you don't put a, thick, heavy coat of paint. It won't dry correctly. And the better way to do it is put a thin coat of paint, let it dry, and then put another thin coat of paint, let that dry, and it works much better. So learning is actually pretty similar to that, right? So you have to expect that it's going to take multiple passes, multiple coats in the analogy. So please do plan to expose yourself to the material multiple times, right? Think about, in fact, I have an outline in the how to do well in this course section of the course website, and in particular on the page called Course Design and Strategy. Let's click over to that real quick here. So on the course website, how to do well in this course, Course Design and Strategy. And so you should preview the material before you go to class. You should have a very loose and rough idea of sort of what I'm going to talk about before you even show up. Not that you will understand it perfectly. Of course not. Right? If you could understand it perfectly without me, then there wouldn't be any need to have a class. Right? But we should have rough ideas and kind of have a vague idea of what we're going to talk about. That will help you to get more out of the course, to get more out of the lectures when you come to the lectures during the class meetings. And then after that, again, with some of the lectures having been, aimed at you in the future, after you've done some review of the material, then you might want to, watch some of the recordings. Watch some of the recordings, again, after the fact. And then, of course, you've got all these other resources. You've got your own copy of the lecture notes, your own annotations that you might have put on it. There's the book. I think the book is actually pretty good, by the way. I like the book, and et cetera. So that's kind of the plan. And I feel it necessary to point out that because this is the plan that I'm suggesting, this is this plan is what I'm assuming students are going to be doing. And said differently, the class is optimized for those who are doing it that way, which means that if you don't approach the class this way, in other words, if you don't, preview the material in advance and, et cetera, if you don't, take this multiple coats approach, then you're going to find the lectures less satisfying. You're going to find the lectures won't make as much sense because you came unprepared. And so there's a disproportionate negative effect from skipping parts of this process. So, for example, if you don't come to class, that's going to be a huge problem. Right? And if you don't preview the material in advance, then you're not going to get as much benefit out of the class meetings, etc. Okay. So I think this is really important. Make sure to read this page. While we're at it, I will point out that really all of this section is great stuff. The learning expectations, and then also the course resources. The course resources are many. And so notice all of this stuff down here. Make sure to read through all this stuff. I think it's all really, really useful. Okay. All right, let's see. Back to the outline. So we're mostly done at this point. I have a couple of last little quickie bullet points. I hope these are useful. When I was in grad school in particular, this is one of my tricks. I maintain a list of questions. Now, this was in the 1990s, and I didn't have an iPhone. Of course, it didn't exist. So I had literally a piece of paper, right, that I kept in a folder. And this piece of paper was my list of questions. And whenever I was, reading a paper or reading a book or talking with somebody and they said something I didn't understand, I put a little note. A little abbreviated question on my list of questions. And then the next time I had an opportunity, either to ask a classmate or my advisor or the instructor or what have you, I asked, reading off of my list of questions, and therefore nothing ever slipped through the cracks. So the more diligent that you are with this little kind of a little life hack, the more you'll get out of the course. And so I strongly recommend this. I hope you all will do something along those lines. Now, of course, obviously, carrying around a piece of paper is not the only way to do this at this point. And I'm sure there's a much better, you can use the Notes app on your phone or whatever you prefer. There's a million different, much better ways to do it. But one way or another, maintain a list of questions. And then when you have the opportunity to get resources, refer to your list of questions and then cross things out when you feel like you got it understood. Heads up about the course resources. Don't not notice, for example, the help room. Right? It's a really nice resource. Don't just, leave it unused. It's there for you. And the help room is, something that is, it operates for pretty good hours throughout the week, and no appointment necessary. You just show up and start asking questions. And, I hope y'all will find that useful. Let's see. Another thing that I benefited from a lot when I was an undergrad, I was a big believer and still am in study groups. I had a group of friends, coincidentally, that we would study together. And when I say study together, I don't mean that we would sit there at the same table and study independently of each other. No, we talked to each other and we traded ideas. In particular, this is one of my favorite things to do, is try to create dialogue. And exactly how you do that, well, there's different ways you can do it. You can ask a question, and then someone will answer, and then you can ask a follow-up, and then they can answer. And so you got a dialogue going. There's a little bit of back and forth. But there's other ways to do this. And one thing I used to like to do is make a controversial statement, perhaps even a deliberately false statement, and just throw it out for consideration by the entire group. And, I'd say something, all derivatives are directional derivatives. Well, that's a vague statement, and depending on how you think about it, how you interpret it is probably not, I wouldn't agree with that, for example, I think it's basically not true. But if you throw something out like that, then everyone listening will think, hey, what did he mean by that? And is that true? And hey, what's the counter argument? What's the point of view by which maybe, no, it isn't? And the point is, then there's a discussion going and people would trade ideas. Someone would counter my, deliberately, argumentative point, with a correction, and then maybe they got it a little wrong and someone would correct them, and then I could just kind of sit back and watch them argue with each other, which sounds like I was being a troublemaker, and I wasn't. But the point is, I get to listen to the competing considerations that they are trading. And I found this is a great way to learn. I think everybody wins. The person who ultimately prevails and has the best ideas, they win because they win, right? But also because they get the opportunity to enunciate and, to enunciate their thoughts. That requires them to organize their thoughts in their minds, and they get to learn the material better as a result. And then everyone else gets to benefit from their wisdom of, they got the right answer, and, they had the right point of view, and everybody else gets to benefit from that knowledge. So anyway, one way or the other, try to create dialogue. Very, very useful study method. And then lastly, last little bit of advice, try to use the homework as practice for the exams. The homework only counts for 7% of the course, and it's a tempting but very importantly wrong thought to think, oh, it's only 7%, it's not that big a deal. Whatever. Or to think, oh, I want to make sure that I get all of that 7%, and so I'm going to, have an AI do my homework or something like that. And aside from the fact that that's cheating and can, again, extremely negative consequences can happen. Obviously, you don't want to take chances on something like that. That's a terrible decision. But the point I'm getting at here is, think of the homework as an opportunity. It's an opportunity to practice for the exams. Every homework exercise that you answer, you should answer it as if this were an exam question, and you should write down, show your work and explain your reasoning just like you would on an exam. Just like will be, what we're looking for as we're grading an exam. And if you do this for all of your homework exercises, you will have a lot of practice in writing your mathematical ideas. And this is a surprisingly difficult thing to do. It's one thing to know how to do something. It's another thing to be able to communicate that knowledge of how to do something. Very, very different. And now do keep in mind that, again, on the exams, we're going to be looking for, let's see here. Points are awarded mostly on the basis of, right? So basically reason and clarity, depending on how you want to break it down, and being able to communicate your reasoning clearly in writing, again, is non-trivial. It takes practice. And I strongly encourage you to think of the homework as being that opportunity, one of those opportunities anyway, to get that practice. The more you do this, the better you hold yourself to that high standard on the homework exercises, the better you will do on the exams as a result. So again, I think it's a really big point. I hope you find that useful. Okay. All right. We are done. Thanks for your patience. Thanks for listening to all of this stuff. Again, it's all got to get said. And I look forward to working with you all this semester. Look forward to meeting y'all in just a couple of days now. And hope y'all will have a good, very short remainder of the holiday break. And safe travels. And see you all on Wednesday.